So the first question I'm going to move to answer so you can see it. The first question is betrayed partner here. My SA husband of 40 years is doing all that you recommend. CSAT, 12-step meetings, online support group, mentor, and sponsor. We had a full therapeutic disclosure 8 months ago, and he's had about 4 slips since then. Is this typical in the first year of recovery? He says he's learning and is committed to getting well so that he can restore our relationship. But every new slip feels like it's gotten the wind, like I've gotten the wind knocked out of me. Thanks for any insight you can provide.
Well, I don't know if I'll have the right answers, but for one thing, a slip looking at porn is different than a slip having sex with 5 different people. And I don't mean to excuse or dismiss or undervalue the porn issue. It's just there's a big difference between someone who's really struggling on the weekend at home online and someone who's actually going out and meeting people and making a decision. So that would be part of what I would have feelings about, or acting out. Some people do the porn and the sex workers and the affair. I would be more concerned about live acting out, just because that worries me about what could happen to him, what could happen to you, what could happen legally. I mean, all those kind of issues. I don't think that 4 slips in the first year it seems like a lot to me, to be honest with you. I expect that people will have 1 or 2 slips. What I really do appreciate, though, it looks like he's telling you, because and boy, is that the most important thing, that this. I would, however, if you do talk to his therapist or you do have a relationship, I mean, this is what I tell clients who slip. They'll say, let's say I go to 2 meetings a week and I go to therapy once a week. Okay, well, maybe you need to go to 4 meetings a week. Maybe you need to check in with your therapist by phone every day. In other words, when someone has a slip, and for my perspective, right, they didn't have a slip, it's not my relationship, so I'm not upset with them. But rather than saying, I can't believe you did that again, and I say, wow, my perspective, okay, wow, you must really be struggling and need more support. Now, on the other side of, as a partner, I would be, you better do more. But as a therapist, I'm just, it's kind of like, well, I guess you need to have more support, more, and this is how people end up in residential treatment, which is what we do, is that they've taken time, they worked with a therapist, they're going to multiple meetings, they maybe been to psychiatrists, they're on meds, and they're going to support groups. And despite all of that, they're still really struggling. And at that point, you have to say, well, maybe they need a higher level of care. And another thing that could happen is people could have trauma issues, and that trauma gets stirred up. And I don't know what might or might not cause that. And then they go act out. And so they can't really do the work they need to do in therapy because they get triggered to act out. And then the acting out becomes the sole focus of their therapy. So it may mean that this person needs to take on more stuff to do, so that recovery becomes an every single day. What I do is deeply interact with some form of recovery. And by the way, you can go online for an hour every single day and go to a meeting or support group. Or maybe he's someone that you should call Tammy about and say, my husband's working so hard and we've been married so long and I want this relationship to work, but I can't live with this. And, that's why we take people for residential treatment, for that very reason. By the way, we probably know his therapist or work with them already because we know most of the CSATs out there. So, Tammy, do you want to give some feedback?
Well, I do, and I did catch he's had slips, and to me that is he's come to you and told you. I do agree 100% with Dr. Rob. If it's like watching porn, that's way different, than acting out and putting your health at further risk, et cetera, too. So, and not that porn isn't acting out with real. I should have completed the sentence. Acting out with another human being where there's that extra layer of potential unsafety for you as well. So and I know that the wind gets knocked out of you, but I also hear he's doing a lot right. So yeah, upping the level of care. I don't know at this point, I don't know what step he's on. He's working with a sponsor. Hopefully he's navigating those and moving through those, with some pacing. He's not just on step 3, at this point after this time. So, but, he's doing online things. We have the Sex Addiction 101 started on Saturday. I just added somebody else to that group. We'll have another
work group. It's a work group.
Work group. Yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's the online work group. So we've got a betrayed partner group starting for you, on August 17th. So consider, some additional support for you. but yeah, unfortunately, slips can happen. I think it's really important to be looking at the patterns. It's kind of like the autopsy on, what was going on, not just right before, because the decision could have happened, a week before when, I was triggered at therapy or something happened, So I think it's really important, for an addict who has a slip or a relapse to do that autopsy on what was going on, that I gave myself permission to go act out rather than, come to you and say, I'm really struggling. I need to call my sponsor. I need to do something that would be beneficial for me rather than problematic for me. So
Well, I wanted to say one more thing too, because
sure.
honestly, the spouse sounds so nice, so
Mhm.
supportive, so nurturing, and I admire that. However, he's hurting you. And so I wonder if there are consequences for that. Meaning, I'm so glad you told me about it, but you're going to sleep in the living room. Or I'm so glad you told me about that, but I'm so angry at you that I don't want to see you today. Like, you don't have to be nice because, there is this kind of, and this is what I wrote about in Pro Dependence. We feel like, oh, I can't yell at them. I can't get mad because they're in early recovery. Maybe they'll have another slip, or nothing you do is going to leave him making decisions to act out unless he wants to act out, in which case he doesn't even need you to go do that. But I think one of the things I didn't see here, I see a lot of support. I heard that you get knocked out, but how do you respond? Because it's okay to say, I'm not going to be around this weekend. I'm going to be with my friends and I'm going to be doing this. And you can just sit by yourself and see if you're going to have another slip. I mean, I think it's perfectly fine to withdraw yourself or certainly to express your anger. It's nice that I wouldn't say, if you do it again, I'm leaving you or something like that. I wouldn't threaten, because then you probably would stop telling you. But I would absolutely act on how I feel, which is, I'm furious and I'm going to talk to you tomorrow. I'm furious and, I'm going to go to my support group. Or so I think that he needs to have real world consequences for his behavior. Even though he's doing well, even though he's going to meetings, even though we're all proud of him and we appreciate that, you're the one who's getting the direct hurt. And so I, as a therapist, I want to be nice to him. As a sponsor, I want to support him. As someone else in his group, I want to have him call me and reach out. But you as a spouse, your job is to be angry. That's your job. And so I hope that you are in the boundaries of being compassionate and hopeful about his recovery, not pushing away your own feelings, because it's actually useful to the process. He needs to know that he hurt you and that you're angry and you're hurt, if that's really how you feel. So anyway, that's my bit.
Well, I'm going to add to that because Debbie McRae last Friday did a great, like, we hardly ever talk about anger, and it's such an important topic. And she did a great webinar. So on sexandrelationshiphealing.com, under the resource tab, you will see previously recorded webinars. I would invite you to go look at that, because she really talked about the spectrum of, like Dr. Rob said, where somebody is afraid of being angry because of, oh, I'll make him, which you can't, but I'll make him relapse or I'll trigger him, to the other side where it's the raging. And I hear this from partners, I have turned into somebody that I never was and don't want to be, so where is that healthy space for you to be in, where, where it does bring up some accountability issues, and it helps you without being, too far on one, where you're completely not in touch with any anger, because it would be, and I think particularly for women, it's like, oh, it's not nice to be angry, but to the other side of it, where it's that raging that is destructive for you, and relationship. So that may be a useful resource for you too.
But I wanted to, I wanted to say one more thing, since I'm getting into this anger thing, is that
Oh, I think he will be back. Just a reminder, we don't do hands here. So type all your questions in the Q&A. So I think, I don't
sorry,
know if you, I know, I don't know if when you were messing with you,
sometimes I press, and um,
but you're back.
if you were to come to me and said I had a slip, I would say, I really appreciate your telling me. What are you going to do about it? Because I'm glad you told me, and I'm sure you feel badly, and the wind got knocked out of me, but I want to hear what actions you are taking. I don't want to hear, I'm sorry, or I didn't mean it, or I'm working so hard, or that's nice. But I want to know, as a spouse, so you're going to go to more meetings, so you're going to call Tammy about treatment, so you're going to, because it is not your responsibility. It's your responsibility to say, I really appreciate you telling me, and it makes me furious. It knocks the wind out of me. So I want to know what's going to change. because it can be very comfortable to tell you once every 6 weeks to 6 months that I had a slip, not many consequences, you seem to be supportive. It just makes it easier, and I can just keep doing what I'm doing. So, if it isn't working, add something, change something, do something else. And you have every right to say, I want to know exactly what you're going to do differently. And by the way, have you told your therapist that you had this slip? Because sometimes we just don't tell them. So anyway, I just wanted to include your thinking in that words are one thing, but actions much more useful for us at the other end.
Well, and that's a great point with the, because there's like a cycle of addiction. And so if it's happening, it's going back to what I was talking about too, with the autopsy. It's like, what is happening? What is the pattern with this? Where do you see this so that you can intervene on that? With all of us, we have an outer circle, we have a middle circle, we have an inner circle. And if somebody is going from the outer circle to the inner circle and racing right through the middle circle, there's a problem. There needs to be more, more speed bumps to keep that from happening. Or there were lots of red flags and it was just like, oh, I'm going to ignore those. That's what happens a lot too.
I can't see any more questions because I got locked out and came back in. So
I forgot about that. So I'm going to read this one because I already put it in the other.
Thank you.
So, how do you all work through the pain of dealing with unavailable people? Currently going to SLAA 12-step meetings for about 5 months and have reached out to a number of people for fellowship and support, and they've all been flaky and unavailable. Welcome to addicts. I know commitment and consistency is a part of the character defects of the disease. It's frustrating to deal with. I want to give grace to others and I want it as well, but the lack of consistency seems anti-ethical to the concept of healing in community. How can you heal in community if half the community isn't available? LOL. And it's not really so LOL. I will shop around for other meetings, but to get a different feel. Any thoughts? So been going to SLAA for about 5 months.
No, I got it.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, I did get it. My comment to that would be, I would go to a meeting and raise my hand and I would say, hey folks, I'm really trying to get this, but a lot of folks I've reached out to have not been, I would say they're flaky to them. I would say they really haven't been available or haven't followed through. And I really need to get this. And if any of you would be willing to come up after the meeting who are really committed to sponsoring, to following through, to making this a life journey, please talk to me. I don't think that you can get the answers that you want by asking us or even asking this community. I think you get the answers that you want from that community. And, and I know that we're not used to speaking this way, but, I will raise my hand at a meeting, well, certainly back in the day, and I would say, I hate being here. I don't like any of you. I don't want to be dealing with this. And I'd rather be home. I would raise my hand and share that, and people would come I know exactly how you feel. I hate it in the beginning too. Whatever you put out there, you're probably going to get some kind of helpful response. And you're not the only person in that meeting or those meetings who have not gotten what they needed. It'll produce a whole conversation over coffee about, well, what do we need to do to be more supportive of the new people? By the way, say this, I'm a newcomer. That will change. One of the things that we are committed to in the long-term healing is to try to help people who are new. It helps us feel better about ourselves. And let's be honest, we see somebody who's really struggling and we think, thank God I'm not there anymore. So, we are in a good place to be able to help people. It is important for our own healing that we help people. One of the reasons that Tammy and I do this, both personally and professionally, is it makes us better people by hearing and giving the support that we give. So you don't know that, but one of the reasons we do this free without cost is because it benefits us too. So anyway, I do think that being more direct in those rooms is a way, even though it's hard, is a way to really get what you need. And what we also need to practice as addicts, because we're not particularly good at it, is being assertive. We would rather, and how do I know that we're passive? Because I'll get angry at someone and go act out. Most people are angry at someone, they talk to them. Addicts get angry at someone, they go drink. I mean, that's very passive. So I think part of your learning process is to stand up for what you want. And make sure that you put it out there, because that is part of our healing process. So that's my thought.
Yeah, and I've got a couple to tag on with that. So I put in the chat on our online work groups often, first of all, they're live facilitated. You'll get a really good foundation of information, but the people that are in there also tend to connect because you're going through a 6-week course. So you'll make some connections, and as you're talking about your homework, you'll go, oh, that really resonates with me. Can we share phone numbers so that we can be peer support for each other. Also on sexandrelationshiphealing.com, every one of the drop-in groups is moderated. There's a person there keeping this safe space. I sub in usually on the betrayed partner groups, but they are quick to share contact information so that people can be supportive of each other. It's different than a sponsor. In addition to what Dr. Rob said about, hey, I need a sponsor, I've had people come up to me in a meeting and say, would you be my sponsor? So it can be a little quieter. And you have to get over fear of rejection, because if they say, no, I'm not a good fit, or not right now or whatever, but you could try somebody, try this person. It's a numbers game. So make sure you're asking, but look for people that have something you want. With all respect to the flaky people, they're new in the process. It is harder, to find people that have a longer journey in this area. It is about addressing the underlying, it's stop the behavior, but address those underlying issues. So the more work you do, and I think you'll find those people, and it can be a whole team. One more thing, Debbie McCrae, who I mentioned, for the webinar the other day, she talked about her journey, and she had a whole posse of people, and when she needed somebody to give her just support, she had this person that she called. When she needed somebody to kind of like go, here's the deal, and tell her the truth, and hold her accountable, she had this person. And so having a team of people, like rather than just one person, can also be an opportunity for you. When I first got into recovery, there was a whole bunch of us, and we were single, and so we just created a group, and we did life things together as well, not just at the meeting or just coffee, right after. We did lots of life things. So finding people in recovery that have like-mindedness, that want to be different and on a healing journey, I think you'll find them. So keep turning over the stones, and the flaky stones. Okay, the next question, I think you should be able to see this one now.
I can.
Okay. I've been listening to podcasts with Dr. Manwala. The content is confronting to me as an addict in relation to the view of abuse to the partner and family. Do you find merit in this approach in relation to the addict's and partner's recovery?
No.
Ditto.
Let's move on.
I will. Okay.
I don't want to speak about other clinicians or their skill sets.
Okay.
It's just, first, I do want to say, okay, I will say something. Dr. Manwala worked for me for a number of years before he left and started his own thing. And the way that he has chosen to do this work is very different than I do. And, everyone gets to work in whatever way they feel best, or most comfortable. But that's not an approach that I agree with or support.
So the next question, our kids don't know about my addiction, but know I've done something that has hurt their mom, and I'm working to make sure I never do it again. Our recovery dominates what we do. Is there much study research on impact on kids and ways to mitigate damage?
Well, first of all, I don't know how old your kids are. So, if they're 7 and 9 or 2 and 5, I think what you're doing is fine, which is mom and I have been having some problems, and and I think I kind of let mom down, and I'm really working on it. And, these are adult issues. I don't want to tell you what they're about. They're between you and me and your mom, but, and always, but we adore you. We love you. Nothing is ever going to happen to you. We will always take care of you no matter what happens between me and mom. We love you. It's not your fault. I mean, all of that, because children will assume responsibility that they don't need to assume responsibility for, just because they're kids, and that's what kids do. I do think, so study and research impact on kids. There's lots of study and research on trauma and how different kinds of trauma affects kids. But what's going on in your relationship, I don't know. In other words, is there tremendous tension between you, or do you not talk to each other, or do you avoid difficult subjects? And so there's something in the air that no one talks about. Each way of managing each other. So I can't say addiction affects every child in this way. I can say the way the couple negotiates the addiction, how they handle each other during that period of time, is going to affect the kids. And what we're talking about, which is acknowledge their struggle and that they see something wrong, make sure they understand that what they're seeing and feeling is real, make sure they know that it's not their fault and reassure them, and that you and mom are talking about it and working it out. Other than that, I'm not sure what else you could do. I would always say start saving for therapy so that when they get older, you can help them get it. Let me just briefly say about older children. So let's say over 18, I don't think it's ever appropriate to tell your kids about your sex life. I don't care if they're 25 or 40. I didn't want to know what my parents were doing. I probably knew too much. And it's not helpful. It's not helpful. Mom and I'll tell you why it's not helpful in part, because if your 23-year-old finds out that you had an affair and you hurt their mother, it's not unusual for them to take sides. And so that 23-year-old may say, well, I can't believe you hurt mom. I don't want to talk to you. And don't even think about, you and mom working things out because, after what you did. And then I've seen couples try to work things out and the kid gets in the way. So, and also, 24-year-olds, they're still trying to figure out their sex, intimacy, relationship issues. So I think for the older kids, there's not much you can do except acknowledge. And I've seen a lot of dads after going through treatment go back to their older kids and say, I've been realizing how little I was available to you. And in other words, acknowledge what they missed that the addict now knows that they missed. But it depends on what kind of issues are going on between you, what they're experiencing and seeing, how old they are, and how much they know. So there's too many variables to give you a specific answer. I do think there's lots of research on kids who are emotionally neglected, kids who have parents who fight all the time, kids who live in a household where there are secrets. I mean, there's research on that, but it depends on how you play this out, because it isn't about the addiction, it's about how you manage it and what they see. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Tammy, you're doing this, so either you're
No, I'm
praying
not
or
no, I'm not just swaying. So, I think about, you did a podcast with Dr. Enid Gray on neglect the silent abuser, and it talks about all those nuanced things of, and Troy Love with the attachment wounds, if abandonment, neglect, all of those things, so the way that you are handling it in the context of, how you are being adults with each other and how you are nurturing the kids, that makes such a difference. So I think it's one of those where, and I do know, and this is the one that hurts me the most, I think. Well, I don't know, there's a bunch, but when kids like dad has used their technology and the kids discover this stuff, and so that, that's a whole different layer. You're not indicating that that's the case, that they know because they've found it. Unfortunately, that is really extra challenging when kids, or it's going to be on the local news. There are so many stories like that too. So it depends, but if we go, it's not the kid's fault, we're the adults, and we're going to do our best not to make them take sides. We're not going to divide our family. We're going to make sure that we're taking care of those kids. You guys can get the support to really help them. So
can I just say, Tammy, real quick? So I just passed. My podcast just passed 1 million downloads, and that's just really moving to me, not because of the attention or the validation, because it just tells me that so many people need that support. And I typed in the name of the podcast. I also wanted Tammy to, so I don't know if you guys know this, but every single one of these that we do, you probably heard they're recorded, but they're put into a podcast. And the content is, obviously nobody hears what you guys are saying, and they don't hear names, but they hear Tammy and I answering questions. And Tammy, would you be willing to type in the name of our podcast? We had 8,000 downloads, not that long. We're doing okay. We're a little podcast that could, you and I, little podcast that could.
yes. So I just typed that in. It's Overcoming Betrayal and Addiction. All of the podcasts can be found on the podcast tab on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. I put that link in the chat as well. But for those of you that are watching this later, that's where you can find those. But yes, we did. I was watching, doing the refresh, and I captured a screenshot of 1 million downloads on that. So that was pretty pretty cool. And actually, there's more that were recorded that should be posting this week. So there's some fresh content again, and we're committed to continuing that as well. So. Okay, next question. Is it too early, almost 9 months since D-Day, for ambivalence to subside? He sees a therapist and watches webinars, no meetings, etc. He seems to be free of acting out. He has an issue with me not trusting him yet.
Huh.
Why would you? And thinks I should be starting to do so. No. He gets irritated with questions which are not even constant in nature. But when I need proof, I need proof. I just don't feel very much of anything still. Oh, yeah.
Why don't you start telling me? You have feelings about this.
I do.
And I want to run to the
Yeah.
restroom. So why don't you answer this and I'll be right
So
back.
mute.
No, I mean, you've got this, but I
Mute.
will respond.
And I will, yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So, he's done nothing. I mean, just stopping the behavior is stopping the behavior. So that's abstinence. He sees a therapist. You don't even indicate if it's a qualified therapist. If he's seeing a generalist therapist, I say this all the time. It's like going to your GP when you have cancer. You're going to a nice doctor that can help you get a flu shot or, whatever, but, take your cholesterol, rating, but, isn't able to deal with these things. And just watching webinars, like the opposite of addiction is healthy attachment. He's doing nothing, and I don't know him, and you're typing this as an anonymous attendee. So I've got no skin in this game at all, except what I hear, is typical of someone who wants to keep, I don't really want to do anything, but you should get over it. You should be like, trusting me. And why are you asking me questions? Because I stopped. I mean, it's just ludicrous. So you not trusting him, 100% agree. He has not earned that. Him not doing any real work, if we could read a book, watch a webinar, go to see a therapist for 50 minutes once a week and magically be better, we would. But this is a daily.
We wouldn't be here.
Right. This is a daily thing. Addiction is a chronic condition, and without good intervention, it will continue. It will. So it's just kind of a matter of time. Or he's using something else, food, gaming, the smoking and vaping. I mean, there's so many different ways of, people are using other things to soothe that hole in the soul. So I'm not acting out here, but I'm doing all this other stuff. So the ambivalence, I think that's a self-protection thing. And honestly, Dr. Rob and I've talked about this before amongst ourselves too. When we hear somebody who's ambivalent or indifferent, it's kind of like you're really questioning whether, there's hope for the relationship. When somebody's really angry and they're still in it, that's different. But the ambivalence, I kind of wonder, and I think it's one of those where you taking a look at what do you need for you and give him a chance to either show up differently. What are your healthy boundaries? What are you looking to see, so that you can see that he's actually doing things different? Or what do you need for your joy? If a year from now, he's still doing this, are you okay with it? And if you are, no judgment, all good. I think it's one of those, what kind of a timeline are you on to see him really motivated to make some changes? So, Dr. Rob?
Well, I read this as a spouse who has way too much investment in the addict and not enough investment in themselves. Meaning, what do you mean he has an issue with your not trusting him? Should you trust him? If you've been together, how long, for how many years, I'm guessing, was he lying and cheating and having this other life? And you're supposed to be over it in 9 months? I mean, where does that come from? And what right does anyone who violated your trust have to do with turning around and saying, oh, well, when are you going to trust me? And gee, and the irritation. Imagine like how much hubris, how much arrogance it takes to say, I know I hurt you and lied to you for years, but it's really bothering me to keep asking me questions. Like this. So what I see is a partner who is not letting themselves get into the anger and the disappointment that they have a right to have, and that a partner that's still being manipulated is being manipulated by this addict. If you've been here at all or listened to us at all, First of all, I don't even know if this is a therapist who's trained in this work. Just seeing a therapist doesn't mean anything. As Tammy said, you go to your doctor if you have headaches all the time. If you have cancer, you go to a different doctor. And so, I don't think this is a lack of a problem, or you guys wouldn't be talking about this. But, when he says no meetings and watching webinars, I don't know why I thought this metaphor, but I thought of somebody sitting in an audience and watching a show and think, okay, well, next week I'll be an actor and I'll be on the stage. No, you don't get there by
Mm,
watching the show. You have to rehearse, and you have to go
mhm,
to classes, and you have to meet people, and you don't just get on that stage. Well, Tammy and I didn't get to sit here and support you guys because we watched a few webinars. It takes a lifetime of work. So I think that I smell some bullshit going on here, which is you're getting gaslighted. You're getting told, I'm doing okay, and this isn't a
mhm,
big deal, and I am working on it. So why are you giving me such a hard time? And when are you going to trust me again? As if. So it's not only too early at 9 months, it's not necessarily too early. I think you have every reason for feeling ambivalent. And, I don't, in fact, I'm not sure I'd be in ambivalence. I think I'd still be in you are a mofo and you ruined my life. So don't you understand that he is one down? You are now in charge of, are you going to meetings? What are you doing? How are you treating me? What are you telling? Because if you are really in sync with your feelings, you're not going to put up with this. You are in charge. I wrote a book called Out of the Doghouse, a relationship saving guide for men caught cheating. Maybe he should read it. Maybe he should take a course in Out of the Doghouse. Clearly, he does not know how to show his empathy and compassion. And what I say to the men I work with is, words don't mean anything. At this point, I mean, how long do you say, oh, no, I'm not doing this and doing that? And yes, he was. So what matters is action. It doesn't matter, I love you and I'm sorry I did this and I am going to therapy. No, it's what would mean, I didn't mean to make you feel unsafe and I have let you down. What would make you feel safe? You need to ask me questions every day. Okay, maybe that will help you feel safe. Are you really angry at me? I'm going to have to deal with my feelings about that. Do you need me to go to more meetings? It's like if I have a spouse and I want to be with them and I want to work things out, when they say jump, I say how high. Because this is a point where he has nothing, no legs to stand on. Can you tell I'm getting upset about this, Tammy? So it bothers me. And I don't mean to blame you in any way. It bothers me that I think you have not allowed yourself to fully take in the amount of hurt and anger you have and are a little too focused on, is he doing this? Should he be doing that? Should he be doing that? And not focused enough on how you feel. Your ambivalence is meaningful. I would pay more attention to it rather than saying, oh, when am I going to get over being ambivalent? You'll get over being ambivalent when you see real action and change. And real action and change isn't just I'm going to lots of meetings and it's also how I am treating you. If I am really doing all this work that he says he's doing, he should know that you are the last person he should treat in any way other than compassionately and reflectively. And, so the fact that he's getting irritated with your questions and that he thinks you should be starting to trust him tells me everything about how he's not doing what he needs to do. So, yeah, this is someone who needs to sign up for a course. Sex Addiction 101 starts next week. I have no problem telling you that. And it isn't that much, 90 minutes a week, 6 weeks. Maybe he'll get a sense of what he's really done. And I agree with Tammy, it has to be interactive. I love therapists. I am a therapist, but if we don't understand how to work with addiction, oh, and here's another piece. Can I go on? If he's seeing a therapist who knows what they're doing in this field, he would be going to meetings. He would be having a sponsor. He would be not so I'm a little questioning one of two things. Either he's lying to his therapist or he's lying to you about what his therapist says. Either one are probable. Well, anyway, let me want to say that he's learned how to shut you up and he's working really hard to put you back in that place of not having a voice. Because after all, look at all he's doing. And it is not your job to cheer for his success or lack of it. It's, I can cheer for him. I'm not married to him. The guys in recovery or women, they can cheer for him. But your job is to stay with what you feel and not even question it. So the fact that you want your ambivalence to subside, I say go with that ambivalence. Trust that ambivalence. You're not seeing what you need to see to feel safe. And yes, you need proof. You deserve proof. when someone's lied to you enough, you kind of need to know what is really happening, and not just for a week or two. It will be a long time before you feel any real sense of trust again. To me, it seems like also some support groups for partners. And again, take the Betrayed Partners course, hang out in some of the many free groups that we offer for partners to sit and listen to other partners. You spend a couple of weeks in those groups, I think you'll get in touch with your anger. And you need to, because if you're trying to fuzzy figure out how to make this work with, I guess it's a him, I assume it's a him, um, you need to hear from other spouses who are saying, I would never put up with that, or this is what I'd be looking for, or, we're glad to say it, but I think having a peer say it to you. I always say to a woman, it's so wonderful to look across one of those rooms and see that someone who's about your age, who's about your same level of attraction, who has had the life you have had, and it happened to him or her too. And then you think, oh my God, it isn't me at all. And there is a little bit of that in here, like, do I have any part in his problem? And the answer is no. But he'd like you to think, if you'd just be nicer and just be this, that somehow he would act differently. It's not your responsibility to change his actions. It's your job to say, what am I willing to put up with and what am I not? You are in the driver's seat here. I just don't think you are aware, feeling empowered.
Well said. And yeah, I was like, I just feel like healthy boundaries for you. What do you need to do for you? Oh, glasses. They're not on my head. Okay, the next one. Thank you, Dr. Rob. I haven't seen your meeting in a long time, since I've been working on Monday nights for the last 2 years, but I just lost my job through no fault of my own. How do you suggest not putting your whole identity into a job? I kind of went from being obsessed with a relationship to getting obsessed with work instead. Now that it's over, I feel a bit empty inside.
Well, just a little piece. A job is a real thing, right? You do depend on it. You are invested in it. I'm not saying that you should obsess about it, pull your whole life into it. But when you lose a job, there's grief, there is loss. It's not just the job, it's also the role you had. I'm used to reporting people. I'm used to going doing these things. Now I'm home all the time. So I would treat the job thing like a grief issue. So grief to me means I need more support. I need to be talking about this and, spending more time with people. So I don't think so. Whatever you did before to support your recovery now is not enough, because now you're at a deficit. Now you're upset about something. Now you have more free time. So now is the time to step up your recovery, more meetings, more groups, more therapy, take a course. Again, you'll get another job, but the time that you've taken out of this, when you don't have as much work time, at the time you're investing in getting that foundation further under you is going to keep you more stable the next time you get work. What should your life should be about is your life, not about work, not about someone else, but about the big picture. And how do I want my life to work, and where is it working and where is it not working? And I'm not saying to be self-obsessed, but I'm saying be obsessed with, am I doing all of the things I need to do to be healthy? Am I exercising? Am I spending time with family? Am I out there having some fun that's healthy? Am I going to support groups? Look at your life and see, your life is your job. That's your job. And that's a great thing to be obsessed with in a healthy way. Tammy?
It's work is one of those. It's really challenging because we do get the atta boy, atta girl, and oh, you're doing so good, and da, da, so
And the money.
you get positive affirmation, even though your life can be completely out of balance. So, one of my hardest lessons was finding moderation, because I'm on the pendulum swing, and the only time I was going through the middle was when I was going through the middle. So learning, work boundaries, enjoying life boundaries, finding the right balance. You won't do it perfectly, but I think I'm going to reframe this for you. I mean, grief, I get it, but what a great opportunity to have recovery and have a period of time where you can give pause and think about, what do you want for the next chapter of your life, rather than quick going back and cramming into another job that's the same, because I have to get a job. It's like, be a little reflective, get input from qualified people, your peers, to help you figure it out. You may be on the cusp of like the best chapter yet in your life with recovery tools and more balance in your situation. So I'm excited for you. I know it's like a loss too, but there's also this opportunity to look at things differently and look at it, because we, the other thing with work is we kind of get head down doing whatever we're doing, and we don't take that pause to look and reflect on, is this what I want to do? Is this how I want to do it? Is this the balance of, how much? I mean, I'm glad you're here. Like, we're glad you're back. So
You're
anything
welcome
else
back.
you want to? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think Tammy and I are very much alike in that we keep lists. And I know for me, when I check something off on that list, I feel like good about myself. Like, oh, right or wrong, I could have been working 3 days to get. But when I check that box, I feel like, okay, I did something. It's a self-reward. If you don't have those boxes to check around work, you still need to check some boxes. And one of the best ways to do that is to help other people. This is a great time to do some volunteering. This is a great time to sponsor someone at 12-step meetings. This is a great time to take a commitment at a meeting, to bring the coffee, to bring the books, do things that are good for others and make you feel good about yourself. That is a great way to make other things like work less important, because the rewards that you get from giving, that will fill in some of that obsession with work, because you'll be being fed emotionally in other places. So, and my dog wants to go out. One of the best models that they have in addiction and sex offender recovery right now, that's fairly new, is something called the Good Lives model. And it's in Australia. And what the Good Lives model is about is that they take people who have these issues and they make them invest in working at the SPCA. They make them invest in working in senior citizens' homes. They make them invest so that there is a part of most of us addicts that often feels like, oh, maybe I'm not worthwhile, maybe I'm not adequate, especially if you lose your job. One of the ways that I think, well, I won't speak for you, Tammy, that I feel good about myself is giving my time away. And when I get a note from one of you that says this was helpful and thank you, that's just icing on the cake. I appreciate that, but it's doing this that makes me feel rewarded. And I wonder what you are doing for others, to give of yourself. And I think that will take away some of this, because really we're talking about a self-obsession, and what takes away self-obsession is giving some of it away. So that would be, I would make my identity about how can I be a more giving, more loving, more expressive person, and then everything else is going to work better. So, and welcome back.
Yeah, and on that note, because this is not a big shock, but like, I've been in a position like that, and like, I was immediately going to go volunteer for 20 different groups, and then I thought, it's probably not a good idea. So I was very intentional, and I had to be. I needed to slow things down, be intentional, because the last thing I wanted to do was go volunteer and say yes to a whole bunch of things, and then turn
Right.
around and have to retract it. So picking things that were of genuine interest that I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to continue, and that I was willing to commit to, even if the next job I had to work around it. That was meaningful to me. But again, it was being intentional and reflective of that. So I think it's a really good opportunity. And with a couple years in, you're in a different place, so that there's a lot going right for you right now. So okay, the next add-on was the kids are 16 and 13. Any other comments about kind of teens?
No, they're
Okay.
too young to, keep them out of it. I will say this though, if you have a bunch of kids and one of them finds out about your acting out, they all are going to find you out. Like, there's no, kids do not keep secrets from each other.
Mhm.
Don't tell your sister, she's too young, forget about it. So, I would also try to meet with them together, so they have the same information at the same time. Anyway, go ahead, Tammy, we should move on.
Okay. I feel a bit hopeless. It's been 5 months since D-Day, and I've been seeing a qualified therapist, 12-step and work groups on here. Wife has 3 therapists as well. She asked for a separation for the past month and a half, and I have been miserable being away from our young kids. And I see that our relationship getting more and more distant, which I thought was supposed to be getting better. We did the disclosure. She knows everything. And she has said that she can't seem to get over the disgusting things I have done in my life, even outside of our marriage, which produces a lot of shame in me. She says she can't imagine being with someone who is sexually turned on by some of the things I have watched done. And it's a red line for her. She asks how I could possibly have enjoyed that, and I can't. is there any hope that she seems to be more and more distant every week? You're muted.
Sorry, my dog was licking his foot and I wanted to tell him to stop. So I didn't want to say it out. So Tammy, there's a lot of questions inside of this. And this is one of those times where I wonder if maybe you could break them down to maybe one or two questions that we could, more succinctly answer.
Yeah, well, I wanted to comment on the, you're doing, at the end of the day, we have no control over someone else's actions and reactions. All we can do is take care of ourselves. I was curious about her having 3 therapists. That seems like a lot, but I don't know. Dr. Rob, you may have, a reflection on that. So, but one of the questions is she can't get over what she's heard. And I'm assuming you had a formal therapeutic disclosure. So even with that and the containment within that, she still is, there's information that she has heard that is too upsetting to her. So,
Well, did you want to comment on that, Tammy?
yeah, I mean, it's just like with a formal therapeutic disclosure, a well done one is, it's contained information and it isn't like every gory detail that gets stuck in their heads. Now, some of them have discovery and learn those things, but so I'm questioning a little bit of that. I guess my big point with all of this is, yeah, there will be a loss for you because of your behaviors, of a situation you got no control over, her or her reactions, but you can be a better dad. You can show up regardless, even if you are not in a relationship with her, you will still co-parent with her. You will co-grandparent with her. I use that because I want you to understand the magnitude of you showing up and being the best person you can in recovery is the only way that you have a chance to really be the dad your kids deserve. So but what are your thoughts?
Well, what I hear is trauma.
Yeah.
And when someone says they can't get something out of their head and they're ruminating about it and they can't get over it, and even seeing us I mean, I understand all of those feelings to some degree, and someone has been betrayed, but this feels a little bit like maybe she's reminded of some things that happened to her in the past or happened to someone else. I think when someone can't get it out of their, now, the fact that you acted out, I don't think any spouse can get that out of their mind for 5 months. Maybe it takes a little bit longer, but if it's very specific to certain things you looked at or certain things you did or things that are going over and over and over in her head, that may be something you can't do anything about, and that either time will take care of, or it might be that her therapist or professional might recommend that she do some trauma work. I don't know. Speaking to the 3 therapists, it's very simple for me to answer. We have an ethical responsibility. Right? I have a code of ethics. Every licensed professional, doctors, nurses, therapists, lawyers, we all have a code of ethics. And one of the things in my code of ethics, in other words, I could lose my license if I did this, is that I cannot have someone I'm working with see more than one primary individual therapist. So if I'm seeing you once a week for therapy, you can't see anyone else for therapy unless you're going to a group or you're doing something specific, like working on an addiction issue, or you're doing some exercises for trauma. Certainly 3. The only way I would have 3 therapists would be, one, I'm working on a specific issue. The other might be in group or personally, and then I might see someone for couples. But you have to understand that if I'm seeing 2 primary therapists, it's really problematic and that's unethical, because I say to the first one, well, blah, blah, blah. And they say, well, here's this idea. And then I go to the other therapist and I say, blah, blah, blah. And they say, well, here's this idea. And then I have to figure out which is the right one, or, it's not appropriate. So, no, of course, you can't say to your wife, I think you should do it differently because she just hates you. And I assume it's a wife. I don't really know if it's a male or female, but I am concerned for you that, well, I'm concerned about 2 things. I mean, I am concerned about 3 therapists because it sounds like 1 or 2 too many. And that will make her more, especially if not all the therapists work in our field, a lot of therapists, not particularly good ones, will take on your anger and your disappointment and start feeding it back to you, which is, boy, I don't know if I could live with that. And the way he's treated you, and that's not helpful. It's helpful to say, how is it? What is your life like since this has been going on? And you must feel terrible. It makes me feel sad that you're going through this, but it's not the same as discouraging you from being in this relationship, discouraging you from trying to heal it. So part of it is this therapist, your wife, working toward your healing as a couple or away? Um, Finally, oh, two more things. What turns me on, I'm not responsible for it. I'm responsible for what I look at and what I do with that. But if someone who's trans turns me on, or someone into leather or lace, that's what turns me on. There's nothing I can do about it. That's who I am. It's part of me. Do I have to act on it? No. Do I have to look at it? No. But is it going to go away? No. And, a lot of folks I work with, I wrote an article about this called "The Porn Made Me Do It," meaning that I've worked with lots of people who they've looked at porn that they never thought would turn them on, and then they realized that it did. And now they're into stuff that they never thought they'd be into. And I've had a lot of clients say to me, well, once I stop looking at the porn, that's going to go away because it was the porn that made me do it. And the answer is that I love, these are my words, porn is both excitatory, means it turns us on, and it is revelatory, meaning it reveals things to us. There is an unconscious. There are parts of us we just don't know about. That's what therapy's for. Like, some people have told me I can be really angry, but I never saw myself as being angry. I had to figure that one out. So once the porn reveals something to you that turns you on, it's not like the porn made you be turned on. It's that you discovered some part of yourself that you didn't know was arousing. That may not be what your wife married you for, but it's there and it's not going away. The question is more, are you acting it out? Are you causing problems with it? Is it hurting you? Now, the only things that don't count in that is sexual orientation, for example. If you're a male and you've been exclusively looking at men and you have been having sex with men or whatever, that is a legitimate thing for your wife to say, I don't know if that means we can be together because that's really what you're into. There are other people who don't enjoy sex without, having someone hit them. That's just what they're into. And it's not my job to say that's right or wrong. But if your spouse can't get out of their head the fact that this is what you enjoy, well, and let me say one more thing, actually. Some spouses feel like, oh, you're not going to enjoy sex unless you're doing that. And I don't want to do that. So we're not going to enjoy sex anymore. I think, and that it feels like there's a lot of information that's not being talked about between the two of you. This is a conversation that you really need to have in a calm space, maybe with a couples therapist, which is, I did this and it sounds like it really disgusts you or whatever, and I want to know more about that. And, I don't think I'll do this again. This is part of who I am. There's a lot of talking that needs to go on here, because what I hear is sort of the end pieces of it, which there's disgust, there's I feel bad, but I don't see the two of you actually getting into the conversations. What she believes and thinks may not be entirely accurate. What you're perceiving as her disgust or whatever may not also be entirely accurate. It could still be some of her anger about what you've done. I will say that getting distant week after week, that after 5 months, I don't think that's unusual. But are you talking about it? I notice you're more distant. Do you see that as a temporary thing or a permanent thing, or what do you see happening here? I see a lot of assumptions and curiosity and things that Tammy and I could make up answers to, as I have anyway, but just because I don't know more. But I really, really encourage, these are questions that the two of you need to be talking about so that you can come to some peace with it. And quickly, I wouldn't leave this on the back burner for a year. These are, even if you're not having sex, these are in front of mind for her. So, or top of mind, whichever you say.
Top of
So
mind, yeah.
I think that you need to, let's go talk about that. Not I'm so ashamed, I can't believe I did it, I'm so sorry, but let's talk about that. I know it's difficult, but let's get through that if we can, and let's get a professional to help us if we can't. And by the way, being someone with a PhD in sex, which is true, I can't tell you how much we don't understand about sex, and often therapists don't understand about sex. And someone might hear you did this and they just think it's that, and it's really this. It takes, and in our community, Tammy and I have found that there are many therapists who are really well trained in sex addiction, but they don't know anything about fetishes or sexual orientation, or, so you got to see the right person and ask the right questions for these things to be figured out. And if your wife is seeing 3 different therapists, that does concern me. So.
And I want to go back to I feel a bit hopeless. For today, you do your recovery work. That's you for today, do your recovery work. Tomorrow, get up and for today, do your recovery work. That's all we have control over, are what we do and our actions and reactions. So, okay,
And I'm
next
going to say
question.
one more thing. When clients come to Seeking Integrity for treatment, it's almost exclusively because they're in a relationship problem of some kind. It takes a while for them to figure out that they're not there for that at all. That yes, they want to solve the relationship problems, but they also realize they want to be better people. They want to have more integrity. They want to be able to live comfortably with themselves. So rather than your wife being your higher power, the reason, if she goes this way, then I'm in this mood, and if she goes that way, stability in your recovery is really important. It's difficult for couples when you're used to depending on each other, as it should be, for your first answer, support as you go to your spouse. Well, now your spouse is angry at you. So you're going to them is hurtful for them because they have to turn to you and try to support you. It asks them to move away from anger to be there for you, and that's just not their job. And by the way, they can't turn to you for support, even though that might be what you're used to, because you're the one who hurt them. So there is a long period where both of us need to turn away from the relationship for support, so that when we turn back to the relationship, we're more grounded to deal with each other. For example, we don't encourage couples therapy at the beginning of this, when you guys find all this stuff out, because it usually tends to be, I can't believe you did this to me. I can't believe you did this to me. And the other partner saying, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And that isn't really useful for couples therapy. So it may well be that you really need to focus on getting support from others. It may also be that your spouse is focusing on herself and her own support, and that you're just not important at the moment. But again, all these things really need to be talked about. And I hear more questions than answers than we can answer here. It is for the two of you to answer.
And we're gonna, like, there was more, like, she asked for more details before and after. Like, if you're doing a formal therapeutic disclosure, and she had 7 pages of questions afterwards, that is for her therapist to be helping navigate. There's probably a handful of questions that are legitimately like asking for clarification or safety, but the disclosure, is contained information. Dr. Rob has talked about it. It's a couple of pages of data and information. It isn't 25 pages of every gory detail. And on this date, I did this. And then, I looked at porn on that date and I did whatever. I mean, there's key things that absolutely need to be, I had sex with my family member or with your family member. That's a really big deal. We've heard that recently. So,
and I wanted to add to that, Tammy, which is that, just to really reinforce what Tammy said, maybe in a slightly different way, is that every spouse wants more answers. But what about this? What about that? And there is an illusion in that for spouses, which is, and you tell us this, by the way, is I just need to know this. And there's this thought that you have, spouses, that if I know about this and that, then I'm going to feel better. And the truth is, you're not, because this is a horrible situation. No matter how many answers you get, you're still going to feel awful. There's another part that, well, maybe I can see if he or she's doing this, or look out for it, or know more when it's coming if I know more. No, you won't. You didn't before and you won't now. What Tammy's saying is there are certain details, how big their boobs were, or how many times I did this, or what their hair, or what kind of sex we had, or where. There are things that if you say them, you can't. You can't, once the cork is out of the bottle, you can't put it back in. Your spouse will obsess about this because they can't get it out of their mind because it was too graphic, too detailed, too much information. Do I need to know that you saw sex workers over a 3-year period of time and it cost you this much, and that you had, you wore, that you were safe? And yeah, I need to know those things. How often? How much did you spend? Am I at risk? Exactly how many times do you think you did this, and where were we living? But the specifics about the sexual act or what you did with that person, unless it involves safety or I wouldn't want to tell my spouse that, not because I'm hiding things, but because they'll never get it out of their head. And when you think of me doing XYZ in a sexual act and you're having sex with me and you start thinking about that, it's going to ruin any possibility of a sex life that we have going forward. So this is actually a boundary issue, which is learning from my therapist what is appropriate to say and what isn't. And for the spouses, to put your questions together and find out what is the real bottom line. And by the way, the bottom line of all your questions is this safe? And can I move forward? Or is this going to continue to be unsafe? And do I need to not move forward? That's basic. There are underlying questions that underlie the 700 questions you have, and you can pretty much get it down to a page. Yeah. So, Tammy, I really want to answer the next question. Go ahead.
Okay, but and I want to tag onto this. So because I had a partner, I was talking to her. She had 150 questions, and I was like, we got it down to 3 questions. There were 3 legitimate questions. All of the rest boiled down to that. But with your formal therapeutic disclosure, there should have been a plan of, if questions come up, she's going to take them to her therapist, work through them, and navigate that. Not just she is asking you and you're answering them. So there has to be a plan of, and if it's too complicated or whatever, then we need to go see our couples therapist to navigate this or go back. I mean, like there needs to be a plan. Doing these DIY and just, having it, barrage at you, look what happens. You've got, you're at a standstill. So what I hear is you want to answer the why do addicts lie?
Yes, I just want to let my dog out. Go on, get out.
Why do addicts
out.
find it so hard to be consistently honest, even when there's no sexual acting out? Lies come out that make no sense to me. This is so true. That there is a genuine decision to stop lying, but it still happens. Does this mean that they are bad, choosing to continue to lying, or can they genuinely struggle with this simple choice?
Well, I'll tell you why I lie as an active addict. I lie because I want to keep doing what I'm doing and I don't want you to find out. And as long as you don't know, then I can keep doing what I'm doing and not get in trouble. I also lie because I'm being the addict. I also lie because I don't want you to get angry at me. I don't want you to get upset. Or I lie to myself and think, if you know about this, it will hurt you. When the truth is, the more you know, the less it will hurt you. And it doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. Addiction doesn't make sense. Why would you ruin your life when I do think though that many of us have various kinds of trauma and abuse. I was working with a guy today, actually. He had been beaten to crap by his dad. I mean, it was true. And so when someone came up at him in adult life and they were angry, he would just shrink inside of himself and he would never say anything that might upset them further, because he learned when he grew up, saying and doing the wrong thing means you might get the shit beaten out of you. Now, from that man to move from that trauma fear thing, when he sees that angry face, whatever angry face it is, to being honest and open, that's a big journey for people who have a lot of abuse. I'm not excusing the lie, but I have a rule, which is, if you're going to lie to me, I want to hear the truth within 24 hours or 48 hours. You lie to me in therapy, drop me a message. I know you're going to lie because that's what addicts do, but can you come back and tell me that we lie in the moment, but that doesn't mean that we want to hold on to it. And really good recovery doesn't mean that I will always tell you the truth immediately. But what it does mean is within a specified period of time, within 12 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours, I'm going to talk to some people about what happened. I'm going to come back to you and tell you the truth. And the truth could be, no, I didn't take the garbage out yesterday. It could also be I had sex with 5 people. It's the consistency of honesty that makes you guys feel safer. There are all kinds of reasons, from not being a good person to being a deeply traumatized person, everything in the middle that might cause me to not want to be honest. I don't think that most addicts I work with, and I've worked with hundreds and hundreds, are bad people. I've run into a few, but mostly they're just really broken people. And for you, lying may not be a choice. It may be you just tell the truth. For some of us, it may be, oh my God, I'm so afraid. They asked that question. What do I do? We're not even thinking about lying as much as getting out of the situation. So I think one of the hardest things for people to understand is that everyone doesn't think the same way we do. I know so many people who, they have absolutely no interest in having 2 drinks. Absolutely none. They cannot understand why someone would sit there and drink the whole bottle. And likewise, someone who's a drunk can understand why someone would just have a half a glass of wine when that whole bottle is there. Well, we think differently, especially addicts. And so, if it was you, you wouldn't lie. But this person who has their history and what they're dealing with, they might lie very readily. So it doesn't mean they're necessarily a bad person, but it sure means they're broken. Um, and as Tammy and I say all the time, and we got to go after this, meet once a night for a half an hour and say, during this time, we're going to go through whatever we need to go through. And that way it isn't you're getting questions all day long, or, in the moment you just have to give an answer. You have some specified time when you're talking about these issues. Because if I was in the middle of doing this and doing that and calling work and doing that, and somebody said, did this happen or not? I'm not sure that would be the best moment where I could be honest and pour out my heart. But I could say, let's talk about this evening during our specified time to talk about it. So anyway, I think we should go, right?
One more thing, the 10th step is continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. It's one of those things that is key to us living differently, because we have to be able to tell the truth to ourselves. Dr. Rob said it, we lie to ourselves, we lie to everyone else. So we have to be able to understand, oh, that was not truthful, or it was half a truth, or a lie of omission, not commission. So learning to understand that is what recovery is all about. And that's why it's different than just abstinence. Abstinence is I stop the acting out behavior. Great. But that's just the beginning of the journey, and it's telling the truth. And Dr. Rob, in the Out of the Doghouse book, we have the work group starting on Wednesday. He talks about the lying, and it's a lying about all of these things. So I would invite you to consider that work group. There's still room. 6 weeks, 90 minutes. Jason, our program manager, does a great job of leading that group. So, okay, thank you for hanging in there, Dr. Rob. Thanks for everybody for the questions.
Good to see you guys. And
to the person that's back after 2 years, yeah, yay, glad you're here. So, but go ahead.
And if you're at the treatment center, I'll be seeing you tomorrow.
Yes,
I'll be there.
It'll be a good thing. All right, bye everybody.